Hi there, welcome. We're just a little early. Well, welcome. Hey there. Happy New Year to everyone. This is great. I love that we're all kicking off the 2019, already thinking about sales and our sales strategies. This is one of my favorite topics. I could talk about this forever. Sales proposals are a lot of fun, a lot of hard work sometimes, and honestly, it's a lot of fun. It's an area I'm quite passionate about, and I really do enjoy it. I have a significant experience in the sales and business development world, so this is going to be a lot of fun. One of the things that I find that we often forget about sales proposals is that it's one of the first touch points with the customer to that we actually explain the value of things. If you think about it, it is our very first deliverable that we're actually kind of creating for the customer. So it's kind of like, wow, what they're going to expect from us. And it's kind of, we're also putting pen to paper, so that's kind of the commitment, a level of a commitment. And this is where a lot of sales proposals really fall short because we don't recognize that the customer's actually looking at it going to see what kind of experience they're going to expect from us, what kind of level of transparency, that level of confidence that they're about to get from you. And that's why we're going to talk a little bit about, how we can go over some of these best practices, avoid some of these mistakes, and really make that solid first impression. So we're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm going to give you tactical tips and tools because honestly, I'm all about, learning from the best practices itself. So that's welcome. So that's our objective today, is to go over the sales proposal mistakes and some of those best practices. But I thought I might give you a little bit about me. Oh, I've got a lot of videos here. Maybe I'll stop my video so we can do this. So this is a little about me. So my name is Satya Malhotra. I was actually born in Liverpool. And I actually which is actually the home of the Beatles. And as you can see in this picture of the Beatles, I'm Madame Tussauds. I kind of stuck my head in, hoping to be the fifth Beatle. I'm very passionate about the Beatles in England, but I'm actually was raised in Canada. So born in England, raised in Canada. So hence the reason why you don't get a British accent from me. But I do have a huge thing for Gordon Ramsay. I love any of his cooking shows. I don't know if it's a style, his approach, or just the fact that I'm a foodie and I love the inspiration that people have. But I am an international management consultant. I've been an international management consultant for over 2 decades. I definitely don't want to age myself more than I have to. But I started my career off at Accenture. And then I went to Rogers, and then I moved out to the UK for quite a few years, where I joined the Amdocs UK practice, which eventually turned out to be a global role, and I ended up moving around quite a bit too. And now I'm actually independently running my own consulting and coaching practice at DigiRuptor Consultant, and really enjoying this new adventure itself. I do consider myself a bit of a citizen of the world. I've been really lucky and fortunate that I've been able to consult globally from Asia Pacific, Europe, North and South America, Africa, and Asia. Israel. Like, it's just amazing. It really was, and still is, an amazing adventure to me. Being that I love people, the food, flavors, like I said, as a foodie, cultures, art, it totally works in my favor. So as a management consultant, one of the things is that our clients really look at both the professional and industry credentials out there. It's almost kind of certain level of a standard of what they can expect when it comes into experience. So some of my professional certifications are, I am a CPA, yep, a chartered professional accountant, and a global certified management consultant. Yes, there is a designation for consultancy. So yeah, I am an accountant and a consultant. So I guess I can say I definitely know how to quantify results. But some of my industry credentials are and certifications, and there's quite a few because one, I love learning. It's something I really enjoy. But two, a lot of my clients expect me to kind of be up to par what's kind of really going on in the industry itself. So I actually am a blockchain business professional certified, user experience and design thinking, DevOps, Lean Six Sigma, change management, and a few others. I'm not going to go through everything. You can definitely check me out on LinkedIn. But I really am a lifelong learner, and I'm 1,000% curious. I can't help it. It's just the bug that I have. I really pride myself in learning it all as opposed to knowing it all. We have met those know-it-alls. They are not so fun. And I just recently discovered my love for teaching. I actually was asked to be a part-time professor at George Brown College, where I teach Introduction to Management Consulting, and I absolutely love it. And one of the things that has been happening is that with a lot of my actual clients, they've been asking me to look at a lot of the vendor proposals that have been coming through. And just because they really can't understand what it is that they're getting, and really understanding what the proposal is saying is going to match their vision, and they just don't have enough time to go through the due diligence of that. So they've been asking me to do a lot of that, and unfortunately I've been seeing way too many poor sales proposals, which automatically means delivery practices also kind of have been a little bit far off the mark. And, this really, is difficult and a challenge because people on businesses are losing these business opportunities. And, not just opportunities, they're actually losing that ability to get the foot in the door and potential new relationships. And of course, the potential of repeat sales. And it's really, unfortunate because we do need to take a look at sales proposals a little bit differently. And I do really think that small, medium-sized businesses really do have an upper hand, and we really need them to grow and succeed in order to be innovative. A large number of big, huge corporate giants, they need the small, medium-sized businesses to kind of keep challenging the norm, challenging the things so we can stay, up to par. So this is going to be kind of really exciting about what we're going to talk about today. So what's the agenda is, honestly, I'm just going to be really quick about it. We're going to talk about the client expectations, the objectives of a sale proposals, common sales proposal mistakes. I'm going to go over 4 of them and all the ways to mitigate them. I am a risk mitigation girl. And, about other best practices, including developing templates. And plus, I have some other goodies to share. So I actually have a free checklist for you so that, you can, and I'll put it in the notes so you can have it after the webinar, about the essential components in a sales proposal, so you'll be able to know how to actually structure it a little bit differently. And plus, I'm going to host a bunch of other sessions because I definitely have the equipment, and I actually love this type of engagement. And I hope you guys have lots of questions. I've already got a couple of emails, so we'll go through those as well. So let's get to it. What's a sales proposal? Now, I know this is probably kind of really, basic. Everyone kind of knows that, but I kind of wanted to highlight a few things. The first thing is that it is a formal written plan or an offer from a seller to a prospective buyer, right? And it's being put forward for consideration. And most likely it's going to be discussed with other people in the organization. And then the other definition down there is the offer of marriage, which is also kind of true in the sales proposal world too, right? It is an offer of trust and partnership. So there is that kind of synergy that could be made. Now, finding clients can be really difficult when you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur, or you have a small business and you're just starting to kind of make your mark in the world. Because the challenge we have is that we have to convince other people to depart from their hard-earned money with the expectation that you are the best option for them and their needs. And it's really hard because you haven't gone through that know, like, and trust phase and that courtship, and you're still developing a relationship. And this is where the art of marketing and sales have really come into play. And if you look at it, the marketing world has changed dramatically over the past few years. I mean, it's been changing no matter what for, over the past few decades, but in the past few years, it has really shifted quite a bit. And so has sales. Now, unfortunately, a lot of salespeople haven't actually modernized their actual playbook and their types of techniques and tactics out there. Gone are the days where people would just pitch to potential buyers without doing any thinking or due diligence. And, buyers are a lot more smarter. They've done a lot more research. They're a lot more engaged in the life cycle. So when they're actually engaging you at the time of putting together a proposal, they've already decided a little bit more of what they need and what they want. And they've already done some sort of evaluation of why you're a good fit for them. So it's really hard for, when companies and people just pitch for, and hoping that the client is going to potentially say, oh, wait, I can see how I can use this service or product. It's a lot more different now. It's now that we have to do a little bit more due diligence so that they don't have to see it or think how I can use it. We are showing them how it can benefit them in real world. It's just like, when you go and you're looking at houses or property, now people have stagers, right? They stage the property so that you can visualize of actually how you could use the property, how you could sit in that living room and enjoy the TV and everything else. So that's just whole thing is more about really understanding, what it is from a client perspective and how they can use it. Now, this slide is about, really about client expectations. And here, I'm not asking you to read truly their mind, but I want you to kind of start to speak their language and start thinking from things from their perspectives. Now, one of my favorite sayings, and a lot of my students will tell you that I say this way too often, you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And that's the gap. And that's where you come in because you're helping them uncover what they don't already know. And we have to look at our clients and the sales proposal as quite the learning experience for them. It's a teaching tool because there's a lot of jargon and acronyms and approaches and all those areas that they don't understand how it works. So they have a lot of questions. So they're trying to figure out, how's it going to really work? But this is where you have to look at things and go, wait, let's do it from a coaching perspective. We make it really simple, really easy for them to understand. And more importantly, do you actually understand why this project or initiative is really important to them? And understanding that why behind everything, it really helps you kind of start to target the proposal and change the tone a little bit differently because it's thinking about it from their perspective. Another tip that I'll always give and share is that ultimately, whatever you're doing for your client, it's going to help them serve their clients. So look at it from, what's the value or benefit that you do from your client's perspective, but what can they use this for their client's perspective? And I'll help you really start to see the values and the benefits that you can provide in a much more of a bigger picture. The other thing is I will always go back to, what are the types of questions that our customers were really going to ask? Like, how can we read their minds? And what are the questions they're going to probably ask? And it goes back to the simple things, right? The 5 W's and the how, the who, what, where, when, why, how. Like, why do they need this product and service? But again, from their perspective, do we actually understand their client's customer and who is delivering the service and who's involved in this process or who needs to be involved in this process? What exactly are we providing? A lot of proposals I've seen and a lot of things my clients will say is, I've read this proposal and I still have no idea what I'm getting, because we're not speaking into that. We understand what the deliverables are, what the timelines are, what the outcomes are. We're just saying things that what we offer. And that's a big mistake right there. Where are some of the key activities being conducted? Is the assumption it's always going to be on the client side? Is it remotely? Are there other vendors involved? When is this need to be done by? Is there a certain timeline? Are there dates that they're moving towards? Is it because of regulatory matters? Are there dependencies, because sometimes that helps you kind of break down between different phases of what's the minimum viable product that they need right away and the other nice stuff, nice to have. It also gives you an idea for their commitment turnaround of when they're going to accept your proposal. How are you delivering this? What's the approach? A lot of people have actually told me, and businesses have told me, that they don't like to put their approach in because they think it's their IP or their secret sauce. And the truth is, it's not. It's not giving them the methodology of how you're really going to do all of those different steps, like, all those different components. It's just saying what's the approach that you're going to take, and you're just providing a high level understanding of it. So an example could be, an approach that you take to do a survey versus an approach you take to do an interview are kind of two different things, right? You have a different way of sourcing the different potential people, scheduling, booking, and so on. So there's just a different level of our approach, and you're just giving them a feeling of what the experience is going to be and what can be expected from them. And they will actually highlight other things that they would like to add in there because they need to be compliant in their own company, or they're like, oh, you know what, I can actually help you guys with these pieces because we actually have a partner that does this type. So it helps them, again, helps you with the scoping of it. So anyway, so that's a lot about client expectations. But I will tell you something. Clients will need to articulate exactly why they picked you over someone else. You have to make it easy for them to tell the story. Now, this really I'm talking about is that, again, they only know what they know. They don't know what they don't know. And when they start talking to their bosses about other pieces and to get more budget or whatever it is, they need to tell people why they picked you as the vendor, or why they prefer you as the service provider, or what it is about you, because they're going to have to justify it. So make it easy for them to justify your value. And I'll give you some tips about that, so don't worry. But this is really, really key. Don't forget, they're taking this proposal, other people are going to see it, and they're going to use it as a tool for them to have other discussions and communicate with others. So let's start with mistake number 1. The unqualified sales lead. Now, a lot of times I see, and I ask the question of how do you qualify the maturity of a sales lead? Like, I see a lot of generic proposals being sent out and nobody has spoken to the client, or you actually, I think we've all seen those emails where it starts off with, "Dear Sir, Madam," and then it just goes on about whatever it is that they're offering. Again, knowing nothing about me or my business or anything. Or those LinkedIn emails, they're just so general, and it's just based on volume, like sending up as many volume leads as you can. But that's not really a qualified sales lead, right? It's really a little bit more spammy, kind of old school, old fashioned, and very cold calling type of thing, because you're not actually doing any research about the customer itself. So what you want to be able to get to is understanding a couple of things about the sales lead, if it's a sales lead. One, you've got to decide whether or not you actually want to invest any time in this certain sales lead. So one of the things is, does it fit into your business model or criteria? Not everything deserves the right level of energy or effort. Some clients are just getting a feel, just getting quotes, and they just want to put in a certain amount for a budget, or they've already got a quote and they already have a preferred vendor and they're just looking for a third one so they can do a compare and contrast. But you need to look at it from a different perspective about, does it fit in with your target market, industry, their size, their revenue? Is that where you're trying to get to? Does it fit with your overall market strategy? Is it something that you can actually then reuse as a case study or a testimonial that'll help strengthen your position? This will help you determine the right level of effort and energy that you may want to put into this. The other thing is, if it's a new and existing relationship. Now, if it's a new relationship and it's something that fits inside of your business model that would look really great to enhance your credibility in the market space, you may want to put more effort and time into it. And if it's an existing relationship, you've already kind of built a little bit of that trust, so you don't have to do as much with them. You can just validate some of the questions that you have with the client and really kind of say, what is it that you're looking for? Here's some assumptions. Let's validate it, so you can really scope it out together, because you've already kind of built that. So there's different levels of effort and energy that's required for a new relationship versus an existing relationship. And the biggest thing is, you need to talk to the customer to have an understanding of what it is, their vision and their definition of things. There are many times and many times that we'll say the same words, but they mean totally different things, so they may be using the word, for example, engagement, and you're thinking in terms of, oh, you want to engage existing clients, and they're thinking about engagement as turning around of actually acquiring new clients. Again, two different types of definitions using the same words. So it really helps you get on that playing field. Now, here's the truth of the matter. If the client is unable to speak with you, to take the 20 to 30 minutes to kind of have a quick chat so you can kind of validate some of their thinking, their vision, and, have your questions, that kind of discovery call, then it's most likely that they're not vested into this. So that kind of also gives you a clue about how much energy to put into something. When you're saying, hey, I just want to validate your timelines, your budget, your scope, the vision, is everything to be done is, in the first quarter, or we would like to phase it out in multiple different, phases across the year. What does that look like? So if they're not willing to speak to you and you don't have the right information, then most likely they're not willing to probably, they're not really looking at you itself. But the ones that actually do take the time, you do want to ask them really good questions so you can make sure you truly scope the proposal properly. And you're actually at that point then scoping it with the customer and designing the solution together, which is the best place to be. And this is why early discovery calls are really key, and discovery meetings are really great to have and have a framework for that. I am going to do another topic about this very shortly, because I think it's really key that we understand how to do that. Now, the other thing I'm going to say is make sure you're talking to the decision maker. There's tons of times there are gatekeepers in between or a control point to that. And for me as a consultant, that's what I tend to be, is a gateway and control point. But I often, will give them guidance and advice about what it is that the decision maker is looking for in terms of recommendation. But try to make sure you're talking to the decision maker, because that way it eliminates some of the noise and you'll get more of the facts. Now, if you're not sure if if you've got a great qualified sales lead or not, I get that question quite a bit. One of the things I would suggest is take a look at your past history to see if there's a pattern in your approach. This might be kind of a clue that it might be time to kind of refresh your approach. Look at your past sales conversion rates. So if you are sending out high volume of sales proposals and not as much as converting, it's a lower rate, you might want to rethink a little bit that. Or if you're getting, have a low volume number of sales proposals and you're getting, a higher conversion rate, that's probably, you're like, okay, that's great because I'm not putting as much time and effort. And there's ways to also, when you understand your best practice and that you've got a really good process of doing it, you can also automate a lot of those things. So also don't discount your history to things. Now let's talk about some remedies for this. Understanding the value of the solution from the client's perspective, like I said, I've mentioned before, is really, really key. You'll need to understand the impact and get them to start to see the value of working with you. And having these discussions with your client really helps you kind of solidify and start to build that relationship with them. You're starting to understand things from their point of view, how they are thinking about things, who are their stakeholders that they're trying to impress, what are some of their key objectives. You're starting to understand why this initiative or project is really important to them. But you also start to understand their budget to find out exactly how much money they're willing to spend. Because if they say they're willing to spend only $100,000 and you've got a solution that's $500,000, you're probably going to provide different types of options for them. Or you can have a conversation and say, if it is this fiscal year, how much is this budget and how much of next fiscal year? And then maybe you can get the additional funding for it later. But it's really great to kind of understand that, because it allows you to put both expectations at the table. And also timelines. Like, I find that a lot of times they don't ask for the urgency of the solution or the turnaround time to make that, when they need this to be implemented, because this also gives you a clue, and you can actually ask them what their turnaround time is for commitment, because that is also a kind of dependency. In order for us to move to get the timeline and implemented by this so-called date, say whatever it is, 8 weeks or 12 weeks that they need to get it done by, that means I need to get the proposal signed by this date. And which, you know, and then it kind of has a different, like, okay, wait a minute, let's see what's realistic. So you can be able to really start to see that. And again, this is where the discovery calls are really key to actually have those conversations, because a lot of times people send out proposals without having a conversation and actually not actually understanding the assumptions and the factors and all those different key components. And more importantly, they forget that they get to design the solution with the customer by having a conversation. And that's really the key of it. So that's what you really need to do. And that's how you can actually have a really great qualified sales lead, because you're having that bespoke conversation. Now, mistake number 2, which I kind of talked a little bit about, is really focusing on the client, like be client centric. So here's one. Focus on what the client wants to know versus what you want to tell them. Like, really, do you know who this client is? And not just the company, the individual. Like, what is their background? Do they already come from a similar industry so you can talk apples to apples? Or is it somebody that's brand spanking new that really needs a little bit more hand-holding and a little bit more coaching and education? You know, often I find that we end up telling people about the features of our products or services and not the benefits. Now, there's a kind of there's a terminology or jargon that says, you know, features tell, benefits sell, and features are facts. So it's a really kind of a really important thing is to really start to uncover some of those benefits with the customer. And then this is the one that always cracks me up, is the proposal, the sections are all over the place. Like, here's the challenge. The proposal is a story. It outlines the journey you're going to take them through. It is something that helps you go, okay, so this is how we start. This is the middle. This is the end. Okay, this is what I can expect. That's really huge. That's what we want to articulate and illustrate, is the journey that they will take with you, you know, and you want to make it as simple as possible. This is where I find that we miss out certain sections, like we forget to put in sections about our assumptions, or certain dependencies we require, or certain things are out of scope to make sure they understand that what's in scope. And these are really key things because it allows you to have a really powerful conversation. And you have to remember, a sales proposal is helping you enable and build a relationship, and build that relationship to take it to the next level. So you can go from just knowing each other to actually liking each other because you trust each other. And that's where you're trying to get to. Now, here's what we want to do. You know, tell the client what they want to know. So ask those questions, you get the feedback of hearing what they want, and tell it from their perspective. So think about what it is, again, from the client's journey and then their customer's journey. You know, you'll find that you'll be able to articulate a lot more. And enable the proposal so it's really easy to tell the story to other stakeholders, so that they can be able to kind of tell their bosses and tell their other different groups of what it is. And make sure you use your client's name a few times in the proposal. You know, you're trying to make it feel a little personalized. So, you know, if you're using a template, which we all would be, you know, make sure there's no other clients' names listed, or make sure we spell the client's name correctly, you know, and take some time and do the research about the client in the industry to understand a little bit more about what it is that they offer and what is some of the feedback that they get from their customers about some of the challenges. You know, in the age of social media, you know, there's Facebook groups, there are LinkedIn, there's all these different Twitter. You can see the level of engagement they have and some of the things that gets actually tweeted back or, you know, feedback back. So it tells you and gives you a clue about a little bit more about how big the problem is. So take the time to do that. Mistake number 3, why you? You know, it's often we forget to toot our own horns. You know, it's really hard to do it. And not demonstrating your value really kind of hurts you down the road. Yes, you know, you're going to talk a little bit about the features that you provide, but honestly, you want them to know that, yes, we've worked with clients in the similar industries, or yes, we've had clients that had these type of problems in the past. You know, look at the case studies. And again, you don't have to put client names inside your case studies or testimonials or any of those things, but you do kind of want to share that it's in this kind of industry or within the same type of, revenue bracket that they are in, like whether they're above 100 million or under 100 million or above a million, and so on. You want to give them show them that you've dealt with companies of their same size or their same, background. So tell them, what is your competitive advantage and differentiator? What is your value proposition? Be that person, and articulate that value that you're going to bring them, because honestly, it just makes them even more excited and more proud to be working with somebody as established and credible as you. Now, I kind of talked a little bit about this. So this is really about focusing on features versus benefits. Remember, features are facts, that's what it is. We can actually, have multilingual. That's great. You can do that, but you really want to be able to say that you have these benefits that can actually have the values that what provides to them. Why will our customers care? We got to think about it from that perspective. Why will their customers care? How will it impact them or affect them? Once you understand the benefit to them, it's easy to understand and how to communicate to your audience to get them excited. And that's key, right? You want them to see that, hey, I get you, I hear you, and you know what? We understand what you're looking for. So really try to spend some time to think about how it's going to benefit this client, and how is it really going to benefit the client's customer, their end customer. It makes a big difference, and you'll start to see that flavor coming through. And again, do some research. It's amazing how much stuff is sitting out there on social media. I went to one of my clients, and there was a Facebook group that they had, and they kept pushing out materials constantly. But what they didn't do, was they didn't actually read any of the responses to any of it. And honestly, it was actually kind of really challenging and disappointing to see that they didn't even respond to the client's concerns. Not even in a timely manner. They just ignored it. They just kept pushing out content. So what do you think the customers are complaining about? You can't get great service, they're not reliable, all those things. And they didn't spend time to that. Now, it turned out to be an advantage for me, because I was able to say, look, you guys are unable to monitor real-time, statistics of what's actually happening and feedback. Here's some solutions and things we can help you provide, and it'll help you be able to kind of mitigate that, and also update your policies and procedures for the areas that are not clear to the clients, and look at feedback as a different, form. And it really got them a little bit more excited to see the opportunity, because as a company and a business, an individual, you get beat up all the time for all the stuff that you do wrong, right? And it's hard. And so having someone that comes in and provides value and says, you know what, don't worry, you can mitigate that. Here are a couple of different options of how we can do it together, is a very kind of a breath of fresh air. So do that. And also take the time to use simple words. And if you're going to use industry jargon or abbreviations or any of those things, make sure you explain it in the proposal somewhere of what that means, because it's hard to sometimes tell somebody that, not everyone comes from the same background and same level of education and so on, and level of experience. So you can't assume everyone's on the same playing field as you, especially when words may mean different things. So take the time to really, make sure it's clear to them. And even when I do my podcast, I'll stop and I'll say, can you explain this for my listeners? What does this mean? Just think about it from their perspective again. Mistake number 4. Okay, you know what? You're going to laugh at this, because you're going to be like, who does this? And I'm going to tell you, oh gosh, way too many people. And here's what the truth is that, we have so much stuff that we're doing all the time, we got the hustle going on, we're pushing up proposals, we're doing all of this. We're multitasking most of the time. But you know what? This is one of those things where this shows, again, the level of due diligence and care for your client and what kind of quality they're going to expect. For example, grammar and typos. Okay, we all have Word. We all get those things. We can also do, Grammarly is a free tool that you can use. But I've actually seen it a couple of different places where they've actually spelled the client's name completely wrong. or they actually in the header had forgotten to change the client's the template from the old client's name and put into the new one. And it's just such small things that you're just like, oh. And then the client's going to be thinking, oh my gosh, they had an old client's name. Is that what they're doing to us? Is that what they're going to do to us? Is that how they care about our privacy and how they're going to respect our boundaries? It really actually opens up a bigger can of worms. Is the proposal it might be in English, but we have to recognize there's different English out there, right? So there's the UK English, Canadian English, US English. How are you writing the proposal? In what language are you writing it in? So are they always going to see, if they're an American, are you going to put in the U because you're Canadian, or are you going to make sure where there's S's, there's Z's for the UK English? You just need to make sure you're very clear and consistent throughout the proposal of that. So then again, it's saying, hey, I hear you, I speak your language, and you're important to me. It's just the little small things, right? The other thing is, like I mentioned before, the information is all over the place. It's not even in a story format. There's no table of contents. It's really difficult to navigate through. So what does that kind of make the client feel? That I'm going to have to pull information from them all the time, and I'm going to have to put it in an order that makes sense. Like, it's not showing that you're easy to work with. It's showing that you're maybe a little bit hard to manage, because you're not being very clear and concise, and that's a challenge. Sometimes we're not being too direct, or we're way too technical. So I've seen lots of times where, a technical person, so you have a sales engineer that writes a proposal, but doesn't, and it's going to a marketing person. They speak different languages, right? Like it's like somebody in finance and marketing talking to each other. Marketing will always say, shouldn't the clouds be purple because they look better from the universe, and they paint a beautiful story and vision. Where finance is kind of like, hey, you know what? The numbers need to jive and they need to make sense, and it's very black and white. You have to talk in a different language based on who the person is that's reading the proposal. So again, these are the small details that are really count, and they're really important. Talk about different fonts and sizes. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen that. Or they use way too many acronyms and abbreviations without any explanations. And some abbreviations and acronyms mean multiple things, and you just need to be really clear, because you want to show that you've got their back. That again, this is about you understanding them, and it's a representation of you and your brand. It should be showing how easy it is to work with you. And like I said, it shows a level of care and due diligence that you'll take when you're delivering their product and service to them. That you're going to make sure that you check make sure their I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and you really are going to make them look great. I mean, isn't that why they hired you? Is to help them look like a rock star? Now, look, this one is an easy one to fix, right? Like I always do, yes, proofread your work. But I actually had to go a little bit further. Like I actually do the mom test. Okay, not saying that my mom is really not bright. My mom will question everything. My mom has no clue what a management consultant is, and not that I expect a lot of people to know what they do and how we do, things provide value for our clients. It's hard to explain, but I have been the chandler in our family for years. And I'm not just talking about my mom. I'm talking about my parents, my siblings, my cousins, my aunts and uncles. They have no clue what I do. Chandler, what I refer to, is from the TV show Friends. And does anyone know what he ever did for a living? So that's kind of like what it is. But I do the mom test just so to see if she understands something. What's not clear to her, because if it's not clear to and easy to read and comprehend, most likely it might be very difficult for the client. And it's a great way to kind of see what you don't know. Again, you only know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And it kind of puts the eyes in the back of your head that allows you to take a look at that. I always find that writing, it's easier, harder to write something than it is to edit. Like it's easy to always edit somebody else's work. And So I actually tend to make sure I separate my proposal writing time from my editing time. And I don't mean that I do it on the same day. I actually separate the days altogether. So I may have written a proposal. So for example, just this year, on New Year's Eve, actually, I actually wrote a proposal on a Monday, and I actually didn't deliver it till yesterday, the Thursday. I took some time, not just the holidays, but I also took some time because I wanted to read with a clear set of eyes to see what other things I could add to the story, because I'm not rushed for time. I'm not, thinking with a different set. I'm thinking, okay, how would they read it? Did I tell the story right? Is there some other stuff I could add to it? And in fact, I did add a couple of other sections to it just to kind of make it a little bit more easier. And again, the intent of the proposal is to show how easy it is to work with you and work with others. Now, this one is kind of an interesting section because, a lot of times, and we're talked about best practices and templates, like when you start doing a proposal and you've got a bit of a methodology and a consistent approach, you can actually use one of these as a basis for a template. Now, one of the things I always kind of say is that, having a template, you want it so it's easily edited. But don't forget, we're all human and we're all prone to making mistakes. So a couple of tips that I have for you is like you highlight certain areas in yellow that are customizable for each proposal. So I'll just pick the simple one, like the client name, that way it's, when you do a search and replace, you can actually do an easy spot check to see those highlighted areas that you actually did change it. For example, currency. There's tons of times where people will put down, this is proposals in US currency, but then I send a proposal out to the UK and it's a different currency. So these type of small things that we forget. So when you're building your template, just take a highlighter and just highlight them. And I usually actually use these type of brackets because it reminds me that these are the sections that I'm going to have to change for each proposal. Now, I get it. We're not going to win every proposal under the sun, and that's okay. It really is truly okay. But what you can ask is, and you can turn around, and this is a great way to build a relationship, is just what could you have done to improve? What kind of feedback can they provide you? A lot of times we don't ask for that because we just think we've lost and that's the end of the game. And the truth is, no, it just happens to be that they had a stronger relationship, or it was a preferred vendor of some other sort, or maybe there really is some concrete feedback. Now, I actually had, a couple of weeks ago for one of the clients, one guy actually sent me an email saying, hey, I just wanted, out of curiosity, thank you so much for your time and, working with us to build this proposal. Is there something we could have done to improve? And I sent him an email and I said, yeah, there was a couple of things. One of the things was that we had to chase you a couple of times to kind of get feedback, to get updates from a proposal that we had sent. So we had sent them some feedback that we wanted to make some updates to the proposal, and they wouldn't turn around fast enough. So it kind of gave us a clue of, are we always going to be chasing them as opposed to them, always kind of driving all the activities. Second piece of feedback I had provided him was that, I tried to schedule calls with him a couple of times just to kind of walk through the feedback so he could actually understand it. And again, he didn't make the time for that. And again, I'm the client and he is actually the vendor at this point, and he's not making that time. So I provided that feedback to him. Then we had a nice quick call, and he's like, you know what? No one's ever provided us with that. I didn't think about it. I am, only so many people. Maybe I need to kind of reshape the organization to have one person manning the emails to respond quickly and manage certain accounts. And so he found it really beneficial. And, even just like another client that, they asked me for the feedback, and I said, you know what, you're pricing with 3 times the amount of pricing from the other 2 vendors that we compared with. Now, again, that's free information for that person, right? And isn't that great to know that you're like, wait a minute, how come I'm so high? Or better yet, I'm okay with being 3 times the price. I just didn't demonstrate my value enough as why I'm worth 3 times the price. It gives you a clue as to what you need to improve. And that's exactly what we want. You want to showcase that you're willing to learn and adapt. And this is why it's also a great type of tool that helps you build a relationship with them, because it shows that you've got feedback. You're willing to take on feedback, you're willing to digest, and more importantly, it's the nicest gift is asking somebody for their opinion because you respect their opinion. It's such a nice compliment that people are like, oh, wow, that's so nice. And you can ask the question, how did we compare with other vendors? And again, it's a great prompting question, and you might get some really valuable insights in there. I know, like I said, my students always say, I say this too often, but you only know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. However, when you start to uncover what the things are you don't know, that's the stuff you can put back into action, into place. So this is really kind of key. Now, I have talked a lot. That's for sure. I feel so. I thought I could put something, to make it a little bit more fun. But a plan that you've been working on for a long time is going to start to really take shape, and it really does take time to build shapes and stuff. We're all experts in our own areas. We're not experts in all the different areas. So I just want to summarize a couple of the different key points that you may want to consider. Again, tell the story from the client perspective. The sales proposal is from the client's perspective, not yours. Yes, there are key points that you want to highlight, but the way you message it and the approach you take in messaging it, it can be very different. It sets the tone for the conversation. It sets the tone for the relationship. So make sure you tell it from their perspective. And always remember, clients, you have to remember it's a teaching tool. A sales proposal is a teaching tool because they don't know all the other stuff. And so it's very much more educational and enlightenment for them. They're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't know that. And, that is really valuable right there, because when you make yours so easy and, they feel comfortable that it's okay to kind of not know stuff and you've got their back, it puts you at another advantage over somebody else. Be clear, direct, and concise. Use that simple language. Don't use so much jargon. And if you do use it, explain it. It's totally cool to illustrate those things. And we have to remember, the sales proposal is a journey, a story, the beginning of the story that they're about to take and the journey they're going to take with you. So it's about to show how the delivery is going to be, how it's going to feel like. It's going to show all those things. So you need to make sure very clearly organized and it's easy to follow so that they can keep attention, that they don't lose their attention. Like it's like a book, they're like, okay, I get it. I get where I'm going to get. I understand. Don't forget, the intent of the proposal is to show how easy it is going to be to work with you, because it's going to be very easy to work with you. And think of the 5 whys, and the hows, the who, what, where, when, why, how. Make sure those components are in there in a way that tells a story. And again, I have a free cheat sheet, like a checklist for you, so you can use that. And I will definitely put in the link. And so you'll have it. But, you want to define your sales lead qualification process, because not everything deserves all that same level of energy. You have to talk to your customer. Here's the tip. If they're not willing to talk to you, then they're not willing to invest time into this relationship or to this proposal, then you don't want to invest as much time into it either. You're not going to change their mind. It's a beginning of a conversation tool. So you really need to make sure they're invested as much as you're invested in. And you got to think about the level of energy. Like, you've got to prioritize to think, again, is this the right target market or industry that you want to focus on? Can this be beneficial? Can I reuse some of the collateral for other clients? Can I, could it be a great case study to illustrate? Think about things like that. Like I said, features tell, benefits sell. So make sure you tell the value and think about the questions in terms of, why will our customers care and how will it affect them? Think about it from their client's perspective, their customer's perspective. So it's really show you that it'll teach you in a different way of how to think about their end user. Oh, can't say proofread enough. And honestly, do the mom test. It doesn't necessarily have to be your mom, but it could be someone that's not in your industry, that is not clear about what it is that you're doing. What is it? What is their takeaways from it? And some of it's going to be really relevant, and it's going to be an interesting perspective, that's for sure. And it's a great way, that you continuously to learn and adapt and improve. What a great way to foster and build a relationship. So the next time they have some sort of similar type of service that they require, or product that they require, they're going to remember you because of that level of due diligence and that level of familiarity. So make sure you ask, what could I have done to improve myself, or whatever it is. And even when you win the proposal and win the bid, don't forget to ask at the end, what could I have done that, looking back at the proposal, what should I have added in there now that we know other stuff, right? It's really a great way to build that trusted relationship that everyone wants to have. Now, I promise there's tons of more goodies, and honestly, I'm going to make sure I send you the link. I did actually create a little kind of cheat sheet checklist so you can actually know how to organize it, so you have it all there. It's going to, it's kind of really neat that you can start to kind of go, okay, I need to put a why here. And you may want to change things around, but at least you know the essential components that needs to be part of it. And you may change things depending on the product and service that you're selling to make sure it goes with the story that you're trying to articulate. If you want to stay in touch, please do. Honestly, I love questions. So honestly, email me anytime, message me. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing in the world, is when I get questions. But I already did get a couple of different types of, feedback from others that saying, can I actually have, do a couple more sessions about different things and topics. So one of the topics I'm definitely going to do is about, how to have those, meetings where you can actually have, that facilitate that discovery session, that you can actually make sure you get an understanding what their budget is, their timelines, and ask those critical questions that kind of sometimes feel a little scary, but it's really not when you kind of have a cheat sheet in front of you. So I'm going to kind of create that. Some tips about how to research your prospective client. There's just so much stuff that you can do. So it's really great. And, some people don't, there's a lot of tools out there about value proposition. So how you can actually do that. So we can definitely do that as well. And, user experience design for salespeople is going to be a bit more of an elaborate type of course. I think it might structure like 3 1-hour sessions because there's a lot of activities in there. So it'll be good because then you can really start to see things from a different perspective. It's not just about sales, but understanding how to use empathy and all those pieces as part of it. And like I said, sales has changed quite a bit over the past few years. And just that, unfortunately, not every salesperson has adopted to it. Because if I still get another email from a reputable company that has a Gmail email address, you kind of have to stop and kind of go, really? You don't know that, branding and we all Google, and the websites are really, key. So anyways, ask questions. I love questions. It is seriously one of my favorite things. Honestly, it's really been a pleasure, and I really can't wait to hear your feedback. But I did get a couple, let's see, we've got 7-8 minutes. I did get a couple of questions from a couple of people that were unable to join the webinar. And so I'll quickly go through some of those. So I had Vanessa, she asked me a question regarding how long does a sales proposal, hold on, let me just read that again. How long should a sales proposal be? Okay, so honestly, a sales proposal can be as simple as 3 pages. It's really about how do you articulate a story. And, and I always tend to put images and graphics to put in there to illustrate, like example, a timeline or a chart to kind of show what the deliverables are going to be and when they expect those things, and, how to define things. I'm not writing a book. I'm just trying to create something so it's easy for them to understand. And, pictures really do go quite a long way. So you can definitely add that in there. Another question I got was, right, research. Okay, yes. Yeah. So how do I research customers or people? I'm in a coaching business. Okay. Oh, great question. Okay. So this girl, Rashida, I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced your name right, asked the question about whether, how do you do research on a company versus a person, because she's in the coaching business. It's kind of crazy to think that there's so much free stuff on the internet that we haven't actually safely secured. There's a Netflix show that I'm watching right now with my sister, and it's kind of creepy, but how people can stalk others because we just don't put enough privacy controls into place. So if you are doing a coaching business for an actual person, you can actually take a look at their social media accounts to see what they have left open to the public. I know even one of my friends, Carmelia Ray, who's a matchmaker, she does that quite a bit for her clients, and she takes a look to see what pictures they put up there, what they, what they do, and so on, to kind of get a feel for, the person itself, and whether they're on Twitter, the Instagram, what are they showcasing. So you can get some great insights from there about what they are. And then just honestly, Google search. It's amazing how many people have been tagged in different things and we're unaware about our digital footprint. I know it's kind of a scary thing to think that there's this much information about all of us out there on the internet, but it's definitely there. Out there. And companies, depending if they're a public or a private company, here's some things. Like, I would read their annual report. And again, I know it feels daunting and big and stuff, but honestly, it's the very first few pages that you need to look at. It'll tell you their strategic direction, their values, their mission and vision, some things that they had challenges last year, some things that they're focusing on. It really kind of gives you a really great orientation footprint of where the company's trying to go. And like I said, mentioned about all their social media activity, you can see how they're engaging with their customers, and how their customers are reacting to them. I mean, nobody goes into business to offer just free, they actually are trying to make a profit. So they need to understand what it is that they may be losing out there. So that's a really great question. And I should put together, maybe I'll put together like a little cheat sheet on that as well. Sorry, I'm not really fluent in the art of opening up the chat channel. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. Maybe I need to escape out of this. Oh, that's great. Oh, Tanta, thank you. That's really great. Oh, I'm glad I actually wanted to put music in this. I actually had Katy Perry because I had the Eye of the Tiger, that Roar song, but I thought, oh, maybe a little too much because not everyone has met me yet so far. So, but I like to put more music into things, but yes, and I'll definitely send out all this stuff. So I'm glad you appreciated that. And Julie, oh, thank you so much. Oh yeah, yeah, the Eye of the Tiger. I know there's something about Katy Perry that she always kind of gets my juices revved up, especially, the beginning of a new year. Thanks, Julie. I'm glad this is helpful. And yes, and don't worry, there's going to be more webinars because I actually really enjoy doing it. It's been a while since I've done these things. I used to always do it, for my corporate clients, or when I worked in a big, huge corporations, I used to do webinars all the time. And I actually used to love preparing for them and doing them. So I'm going to do them a lot more often just because they really are fun. And it's a great tool to engage with others. And now I'm going to have this recorded, and I'm actually going to put it on the website so that I can share the link with other people, so they can always, take a look at things. So thank you guys for joining. And if there's no other questions, and another question I've got, and I am thinking about putting something together, is regarding pricing. Pricing strategies and some pricing tips and tools and things, understanding your minimum viable income, understanding margins, and so on. That was another kind of the piece that I had said to a couple of the different groups out there that I would also kind of create. So I'll start to also put some of those things in there, because I think people need to kind of understand how to get a good baseline and making sure you're making it profitable. A lot of times I've seen a lot of companies that people have just said, I charge $200 an hour or $100 an hour. And I'm like, well, how much money are you making? And they're not considering in their cash flow that they need in order to make a living, and so on. So it makes a big difference. So I'll put together some of those. And if you have other ideas of topics, please let me know, because I love researching. And honestly, these are a lot of the questions I also get from my students at the George Brown as well. So we'll definitely do more of these things. So if there's any other questions, if not, I think we can save 3 minutes in our time and have a good cup of coffee on this Friday afternoon. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Really enjoyed it. And definitely, Tanja, I will add music to the beginning because, yeah, you're kind of singing my style. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.